She was called overrated, too flashy, too soft for the pros. And when she finally made it to the WNBA, they didn't just question her, they hit her. But Caitlin Clark never needed protection. What she needed was a ball, a court, and a reason to play. And now, they've given her all three. From the moment Caitlin Clark picked up a basketball in Iowa, it was clear she was wired differently. She wasn't just competitive, she was obsessed. Her shot mechanics were studied, her range absurd. She played like the game was an extension of her breath. In high school, she averaged nearly 35 points per game. But it wasn't just the points. It was the rhythm, the feel, the way she controlled the court like a seasoned conductor. She didn't just play, she dictated. Caitlin's early years weren't about cameras or contracts. They were about drive. While other kids played casually, she was charting every miss on a notebook. She practiced floaters, left-handed layups, and deep threes long before those shots became trendy. Her family knew she was wired differently. She cried when her team lost in third grade. Her father, Brent, who had once played collegiate sports himself, saw the obsession not as pressure, but as purpose. They drove to early morning tournaments, slept in cars between games, and by the time Caitlin was 15, scouts were already whispering. She had the vision of a point guard and the confidence of a star. That combination is rare, dangerous. In elementary school, Caitlin was the only girl in the neighborhood league, and the best shooter. Coaches noticed, teammates doubted. She didn't care. She kept dribbling, kept hitting shots, kept showing up. She didn't ask to be taken seriously. She made them do it. Her parents sacrificed vacations for tournaments. Her older brothers pushed her around in the driveway, teaching her to finish through contact. The gym became her second home and her escape. While classmates were hanging out after school, she was shooting 500 free throws. Not because anyone asked her to, because she couldn't imagine doing anything else. Her AAU team traveled across the country. By 16, she was a top 5 recruit in the nation. But for Caitlin, the spotlight wasn't the goal. It was a byproduct. What she wanted was to compete at the highest level, always. She wasn't just a scorer, she was a student of the game. Caitlin memorized plays from the NBA. She mimicked Steph Curry's footwork, dissected Sue Bird's pick and rolls. Her room was filled with whiteboards, shot charts, and taped-over posters where she scribbled daily shot goals. She wasn't aiming to be good. She was aiming to change the way people thought about what was possible, especially for girls who never saw themselves in highlight reels. By the time she was 17, she had received offers from every major program. ESPN ran her highlights in prime time, but Caitlin wasn't impressed by lights. She was focused on legacy. At Iowa, she became a household name, not just for the numbers, but for the fire. She hit logo threes like layups, delivered 40-point triple-doubles in tournament games. She was fierce, emotional, expressive, and some didn't like it. Media outlets began questioning her demeanor. Too emotional, too flashy, too dominant. But Caitlin didn't change. She knew exactly who she was, and she led Iowa to a historic run, packing arenas across the country. Viewership soared. Girls copied her shooting form on playgrounds. The culture had shifted, and she was the catalyst. The NCAA didn't know what to do with her. Caitlin's scoring was historic, but it was the attitude that drew attention. She stared down defenders. When she declared for the WNBA draft, excitement erupted. She was the #1 pick, sold-out season tickets, national TV coverage. And then, reality hit. From her first games, defenders targeted her physically. Hard screens, extra elbows, off-ball shoves. In one game, she was slammed to the floor without a whistle. Critics called it tough defense. Others called it what it was, calculated disrespect. But Caitlin got up, every time. Entering the WNBA, expectations were skyscraper high. ESPN ran feature after feature. Fans lined up for Fever jerseys before the season began. She hadn't played a game, but already she was the league's biggest name, and that made her a target. In scrimmages, defenders bumped her hard. During interviews, she was asked to explain why she deserved the hype. Teammates respected her, but also watched her, wondering if she could handle the storm. The answer came fast. Her first month saw her lead the team in assists, knock down deep threes, and take brutal fouls without complaint. WNBA camps were brutal. Veteran guards used every trick. Tugs, hip checks, contact on drives. One teammate later admitted they wanted to toughen her up fast. During drills, Caitlin asked questions constantly. Not to impress, but to learn. Where should I rotate here? What do you do when they hedge that screen? Her mind never stopped moving. Her coach noticed. She processes at a speed I've never seen. He said, she makes mistakes, but she fixes them before I can even say it. The adjustment to WNBA wasn't just physical, it was emotional. For the first time in years, Caitlin was no longer the best player on the court. Not yet. She faced veterans with a decade of experience. Some welcomed her with advice. Others welcomed her with elbows. In one game against New York, she missed 4 of her first 5 shots. Booed, then booed louder. But then came the second half, where she locked in, found her rhythm, and dropped 19 points. The crowd didn't quiet because she told them to. They quieted because she made them watch, celebrated mid-game. She looked like she belonged on an NBA court, not just a women's bracket. But not everyone loved that. Opposing coaches called her a showboat. Some fans booed, but Clark fed on it. The louder they got, the deeper her threes went. And through it all, she never dimmed her fire to make others comfortable. When Iowa faced off against South Carolina and LSU, Caitlin carried her team with swagger and skill. It wasn't just about stats. It was about statement. She was unapologetically elite, and that threatened the old system. At Iowa, her sophomore year was legendary, not just for numbers, but for impact. She filled arenas, her jersey outsold football, and she led her team to the Final Four, twice. But off court, it wasn't easy. She was called selfish for taking big shots, arrogant for celebrating. Analysts debated her every gesture. Some said she was too aggressive. Others said she cried too much. They couldn't decide who she should be, so they picked her apart from both angles. In one post-game press conference, a reporter asked if she thought she was too intense. She smiled, then responded, "If I were a man, we'd be talking about my fire, not my feelings." The room went quiet. She didn't flinch. There was one game against Michigan State where she dropped 47 points and 12 assists. One play stood out. A full-court bounce pass behind 2 defenders, perfectly placed into the hands of her teammate for an open layup. It made highlight reels. But it was the sideline mic that caught what mattered. Her coach's whisper, "She sees everything." But it wasn't just the court. Caitlin helped build a brand for Iowa. Merchandise sales tripled. She stayed after practice to shoot, then stayed longer to sign shoes. One afternoon, she quietly donated $10,000 to the Women's Walk-On Fund, asking to keep it anonymous. It didn't stay that way. Teammates trusted her. She celebrated every assist harder than her own baskets. She brought people in, lifted them. That's why they followed her, not because she yelled, but because she never let them feel invisible. When she declared for the WNBA draft, excitement erupted. She was the #1 pick, sold out season tickets, national TV coverage, and then reality hit. From her first games, defenders targeted her physically. Hard screens, extra elbows, off-ball shoves. In one game, she was slammed to the floor without a whistle. Critics called it tough defense. Others called it what it was, calculated disrespect. But Caitlin got up every time. Entering the WNBA, expectations were skyscraper high. ESPN ran feature after feature. Fans lined up for Fever jerseys before the season began. She hadn't played a game, but already she was the league's biggest name. And that made her a target. In scrimmages, defenders bumped her hard. During interviews, she was asked to explain why she deserved the hype. Teammates respected her, but also watched her, wondering if she could handle the storm. The answer came fast. Her first month saw her lead the team in assists, knock down deep threes, and take brutal fouls without complaint. WNBA camps were brutal. Veteran guards used every trick. tugs, hip checks, contact on drives. One teammate later admitted they wanted to toughen her up fast. During drills, Caitlin asked questions constantly, not to impress, but to learn. Where should I rotate here? What do you do when they hedge that screen? Her mind never stopped moving. Her coach noticed. She processes at a speed I've never seen, he said. She makes mistakes, but she fixes them before I can even say it. The adjustment to WNBA wasn't just physical. It was emotional. For the first time in years, Caitlin was no longer the best player on the court. Not yet. She faced veterans with a decade of experience. Some welcomed her with advice. Others welcomed her with elbows. In one game against New York, she missed 4 of her first 5 shots. Booed, then booed louder. But then came the second half, where she locked in, found her rhythm, and dropped 19 points. The crowd didn't quiet because she told them to. They quieted because she made them watch. Some WNBA veterans welcomed her, others didn't. Online debates exploded. She's overhyped. She hasn't earned it. But as the league enjoyed record-breaking attendance and ratings, one thing was clear. Caitlin Clark was the reason. And that attention came with a price. Players who had fought for years in the shadows felt threatened. The media spotlight had shifted. And Clark, whether she liked it or not, became the face of a new era. What made it hard wasn't just the physicality. It was the split. Some veterans cheered her rise. Others resented the spotlight. On-court trash talk got harsher. Off-court whispers got louder. Analysts compared her to rookies from years past. They said she hadn't earned her place, that her fame came from marketing, not merit. Caitlin never clapped back. She watched film, took notes, responded with game tape, not tweets. The physicality game after game, the hits kept coming, some legal, some not. She was hip-checked off screens, elbowed midair, knocked down in transition. A flagrant foul left her grabbing her face in one game. No ejection, no protection. Her coach spoke out. Fans roared, commentators argued. But Caitlin? She stayed quiet. Showed up the next night. Dropped 28, because that's how she responds to chaos. Not with words, but with buckets. It reached a boiling point mid-season. A flagrant foul went viral. Clark was hit across the face on a fast break. The refs called a basic foul. Commentators were stunned. Fans erupted online. Why isn't the league protecting her? Read one headline. Players debated whether she was treated differently because of who she was, or because of what she represented. But Caitlin's body language never changed. She wiped her face, stood up, and kept playing, even when the hits were unfair, even when the silence from officials was deafening. In back-to-back games, Clark was shoved midair without a flagrant call. Elbows flew off ball. Opponents rotated just to wear her down. And the message became clear. She wasn't just being defended. She was being tested. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #ProtectCaitlin trended for days. But league officials remained mostly quiet. Clark stayed focused. In a post-game interview, she was asked if she felt targeted. Her answer, "I expect contact. It's part of the job. I'm just here to hoop." And then she dropped 31 the next game. There were moments where the physicality bordered on reckless. A fast break shove into the baseline padding, a shoulder check during a timeout huddle. And through it all, Caitlin kept her composure. No flopping, no flailing. Just a hard stare and tighter defense the next play. After one particularly rough game, her teammate whispered, "You good?" Caitlin nodded. "They'll get tired before I do." She wasn't being defiant. She was being factual. There was a game in Dallas that everyone remembered. Not for the score, but for the tone. From the opening tip, she was swarmed, body checked on cuts, slammed on screens. At one point, she hit the floor so hard that even the opposing coach winced. When she stood up, fans in the front row applauded. Not out of pity, but admiration. She didn't point at refs. She didn't yell. She just nodded, took the inbounds pass, and hit a 30-footer on the next possession. June 2024, Chicago Sky versus Indiana Fever, a play that would go viral in seconds. Chennedy Carter delivers a blindside body check on Caitlin Clark well after the whistle. Clark stumbles, rights herself, and walks away. No retaliation, no reaction. The internet did the rest. Hashtags exploded. Former WNBA players like Becky Hammon called the hit embarrassing for the league. Clark refused to comment post-game. Her silence became its own statement. A week later, another hard foul. This time from Alyssa Thomas. Caitlin again on the ground, teammates pulling her up. This time, Fever coach Christy Side speaks. This isn't just physical play. This is targeted, and we see it. Few saw what happened behind the camera. The exhaustion, the interviews, the criticism after every missed shot. Caitlin journaled late into the night, reflected, reminded herself why she played. And when asked how she handled the pressure, she said simply, "I love the game, that's all." But it was never just the game. It was her sanctuary, her rebellion, her way of saying, "You can't shut me up, but you can try to guard me." Clark started waking up early just to meditate. She stopped reading comments, handled the press with grace, but never softness. She knew eyes were everywhere, waiting for a crack. Her performance dipped for a week, but she didn't panic. She trusted the process, trusted the thousands of hours that had built her. And when she dropped 35 points in a win against one of the league's toughest defenses, she didn't smile big. She just nodded, like she already knew she would. Her mornings began with film. Her nights ended with journaling. In between, she trained, played, smiled for cameras, signed autographs. Some nights, she admitted, the noise got loud. The criticism, the pressure, the expectations. She began working with a mental skills coach, focused on breathing, on reframing mistakes, on gratitude. In her journal, she often wrote 2 words: still here. That was her mantra. No matter what came, she was still here, still fighting, still rising. Off the court, things weren't easier. Anonymous hate messages, pundits debating whether she deserved the spotlight, players questioning her humility. Her mental performance coach, a former Navy psychologist, gave her one line to carry every day: pressure is not the enemy, it's the invitation. She began treating every game like a response, not to the fans or the haters, but to the 10-year-old version of herself who dreamed of this exact moment. And for her, that answer had to be calm, direct, and loud through action. Her mental strength wasn't something she was born with. It was built, brick by brick, doubt by doubt. In her apartment, she kept a photo of her as a kid on a driveway hoop, hair pulled back, eyes fierce. On rough nights, she looked at it, reminded herself who she was doing this for. Calls with her family were her reset. Her mom, who always knew when something was off. Her dad, who reminded her to be proud, even when she didn't win. They didn't push her. They grounded her. In a world of flashing lights and echo chambers, they were the only voices that brought peace. After back-to-back viral fouls, Clark sat down with her mental performance coach. She admitted something rare. "Sometimes I think they don't want me here." The coach leaned forward. "Then prove why you deserve to be." The next game, Clark recorded a double-double and led the Fever to their first home win in weeks. She didn't celebrate wildly. She shook hands, then gave her game jersey to a 12-year-old in the front row. Young girls flooded arenas in Fever jerseys, clinics filled with kids asking to shoot from Caitlin range. Coaches rewrote scouting reports, broadcasters rewrote expectations, fans rewrote the record books. And Clark? She just played. With every shot, she shifted the conversation. With every no-look pass, she silenced another critic. She wasn't just growing the game, she was evolving it. Attendance broke records in cities she had never even visited before. Merchandise sold out. Little girls painted her number on their cheeks. At halftime of one game, a coach from an opposing team walked over and whispered, "You changed everything, you know." Clark nodded. Then she went back on the court and drained a three from the logo. Her impact spread beyond the court. At sneaker launches, girls lined up wearing her number. At school assemblies, teachers shared clips of her no-look passes. Caitlin Clark had become more than a player. She was a movement. WNBA viewership soared. So did attendance. Young fans didn't just know her, they studied her. Her footwork, her spacing, her range. And older players, many who once rolled their eyes, started to respect her. Not for her hype, but for her game. In interviews, Clark didn't just talk about basketball. She talked about pressure, about anxiety, about how she'd cried in her hotel bathroom after her first preseason game. Not from fear, but from everything finally hitting her. She said it plainly. It's okay to feel it all. Just don't let it stop you. And with that, she gave every girl watching something bigger than a highlight. She gave them permission to struggle, to rise, to come back stronger. What Caitlin Clark teaches us isn't just about basketball. It's about poise under pressure, about showing up even when the world wants you small, about never asking for permission to take up space. They tried to break her. She didn't bend. Because Caitlin Clark doesn't play to fit in. She plays to lead. Caitlin never set out to be a symbol. But when it found her, she didn't shy away. She used her platform not to sell shoes, but to build courts in underserved neighborhoods. She met with high school coaches, donated film equipment to small programs, sat on panels about equity in women's sports. When asked what she wanted her legacy to be, she paused and said that I never dimmed my fire for anyone, and that I made it easier for the next girl to burn brighter. After one game in Chicago, Caitlin signed autographs for 45 minutes. When the team bus was ready to leave, she asked them to wait. A girl in a wheelchair had waited hours just to meet her. Caitlin knelt down, asked her name, and gave her her game shoes. The video went viral, not because it was performative, but because it was pure. That's how Caitlin treats fans, not as followers, but as fuel. Her message, spoken and unspoken, is always the same. Let them doubt, let them hit, let them try to shrink you, and then go out and rise anyway. Late in the season, Caitlin was invited to a youth girls basketball clinic in a neighborhood that rarely saw pros. She arrived early, no press, no cameras. One girl, tiny, nervous, asked her, "Is it hard being so good and still getting hit all the time?" Caitlin smiled. "Yeah, but that's how you know you're doing something right. You're getting their attention." The girl nodded, then launched a shot from deep. Missed badly. Caitlin clapped anyway, because it wasn't about results. It was about release, about letting girls know they didn't have to shrink, didn't have to wait their turn. In a rare moment of vulnerability during a sit-down interview, Caitlin opened up. "I didn't come here to be loved. I came here to compete. If that means I get hit, I'll get up. If that means I get booed, I'll shoot anyway." That's who I've always been. It wasn't just about basketball anymore. It was about voice, presence, representation. And she carried it all. Not because it was easy, but because she knew someone had to.